if Thomas Jefferson or James Madison had come back in, let's say, Cleveland's presidency, or even Coolidge's presidency, they'd have still basically recognized how things worked. Not now. They'd be absolutely stunned at the accretion of power in the presidency. And that has happened because successive Congresses have allowed it to happen, and they haven't taken seriously their jobs. I love that line that P.J. O'Rourke once had, that he said that the US Constitution isn't perfect, but it's a hell of a lot better than what we've got now. And that should be pinned up over every congressman's door. I take very seriously the role of the legislature as being primarily a check on the executive, which is why I don't even really think it should be called a legislature. But that gives people a completely fake idea of what it's for. If somebody says, I am a legislator, then what do they think their day-to-day job is going to be, right? They are not there to pass laws. They're really not. What are we here for? Why was this chamber brought into existence? It's not to debate things. It's not to represent people. It's not to pass laws. It's not to sit on committees. I mean, it's great that you're doing all of those things, fine. But all of those things are subordinate. We are here to stop the government doing things that it isn't allowed to do. Everything else is a secondary role. So, and I wish legislators around the world would think this way. It should still primarily be their job to ensure that the government doesn't expand. And I have to say, this has been a pattern around the world. It's not unique to the US. A power is exercised once on a supposedly emergency basis, and then that becomes the new normal. We see this constant pattern. I think in a way, the more interesting thing is, how did it last so long before it went wrong? In a world where people are more interested in having their guy in charge than in having the rules properly followed, in a world where people tend to elevate outcome over process, to reason backward from the policy that they want and not care about the rules, isn't it extraordinary that the US Constitution lasted as long as it did? We got a real warning shot with the lockdowns. How quickly all of our rights were torn up, and no one stopped it. Right? So we have been warned how fragile this system is. And this is why it's so important to keep communicating what's the recipe, what are the ingredients that make for this society. Protectionism and economic nationalism and state control are the worst and oldest ideas in economics. I mean, there's nothing new about them. A number of times that people say, oh, well, free trade was all very well in the era of Adam Smith or David Ricardo, but they weren't living in this globalized economy with massive disparities of I mean, they literally were. Ricardo calls it the pauper labor fallacy. He absolutely anticipated that argument, right? But the hero worship, the willingness to use state power as long as someone else is on the receiving end of it, that would have been recognizable to every past society, from an Iron Age slave empire to a medieval European monarchy. We're the ones who have been lucky enough to find the oasis. And my God, when we wander out of it, the idea that we're just going to be able to spot it again, it took us 10,000 years the first time. This is why we mustn't lose the precious things we've got.